If this GMC truck is going to be dependable, I have to address the rotten fuel that's in it and the nasty stuff that's coming through the filters that keeps clogging it up, the garbage that keeps getting into the carburetor. It's time to change the fuel tank. Now, unfortunately, with the World on back order, I couldn't order the one that was for a relocation out of the cab into the bed of the truck, simply because it was on back order, and I didn't want to wait the 7 months or 6 months they told me it'd be. But even this one replacement that I have for it, for in-cab, still had a lot of pieces that were missing. They didn't have gas caps for it. They didn't have the sender and pickup available, and those all took several weeks. So it was a little bit of a drag to kind of get it all in, but now that we have it all, it's time to rip this thing apart. And certainly always the cool part about digging into a new interior of a vehicle is all the new stuff or stuff that people have dropped behind the seats over the years, and it's going to be interesting to see what we find. Now, I named this video Hot Garbage for just the stuff that, well, not so much that I found in the cab, but the stuff that I found later on. So I'll show you that at the end of the video. It's, I don't even know how to describe it. It's a little gnarly. So, but anyway, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot underneath these seats. I'm usually a little excited, but you know, this one had an old bag of belts and you know the normal little loose change and certainly a lot of acorns, and the mice had made a home in here at one point, and so there was a lot of that to clean up. But yeah, the floorboards are shot in this thing. They're absolutely horrible. There's tons of holes in the corners. The cab corners are shot. There's not much salvaging this thing. Whoever owns this truck next, I'm not going to do it, is going to have to change probably the entire floor and do the corners and the sills and all the normal stuff you do on a C10 or a GMC truck of this era. Now, one little detail I didn't really pay attention to too much when I was buying the truck and when I was starting to work with it is, I guess it had carpet in it at one point. There are certainly remnants of it underneath the little door sills here, so I'm going to tear it out and see what's underneath here. I have a feeling it's just more crap and rust and stuff I don't want to deal with, but not quite sure if I'm going to put carpet back in this thing or just leave the floorboard exposed. I know it'll be noisy as heck driving around in the thing, but I may put some sound deadener under the seats and just leave the floors exposed. I don't know, maybe throw a mat down or something like that. I guess we'll see how bad it is, but yeah, there's these door sills are certainly hiding a little bit more rust underneath it, but again, I kind of expected it, and I'll show you some of that here in just a minute. But yeah, it's certainly gnarly, and again, somebody down the road is going to have to fix it, but again, it ain't going to be me. Unfortunately, I don't think the jacking instructions are going to make it. It's kind of barely hanging on there, and with the rest of the cleanup left to do, I'm pretty sure they're going to be lost. But anyway, kind of cool to still see them stuck on there. But from the outside, this tank looks really good. I mean, it looks fairly clean. Doesn't look all that bad. All the lines are in, I guess, okay shape. We'll probably have to replace some of them, but yeah, it's just the inside I know is horrible, and we're going to find that out here in just a minute. So I'll get this tank knocked out of here and do a little bit more cleaning up and see how she looks. All right, so the grand total of what we found here, not that much. About 17 cents and change. Awesome. Some miscellaneous screws and a couple washers. But, hey, the coolest thing we found is absolutely this awesome pimp cane that old Cecil the farmer left me. So, you know what? When this thing goes back together, that cane's going with me. I'm just going to leave it behind the seat. And anytime I go to a show or an event or whatever to hang out, I'm going to break that cane out and hang her on the mirror and remember old Cecil. So, yeah, it was a cool little find, and, yeah, I'm definitely keeping it. And now that the tank's out, I can get the shop back out and get all the rest of the little stuff out of here and kind of break up anything that's left. And, well, we'll get her all washed up and cleaned out here. Yeah, so she cleaned up pretty nicely. I'm happy with it turned out. There's a great big hole in the cab corner. Both sides look like that. So yeah, that's the reason why the water was running out of there. But yeah, not too bad. Cleaned up okay for a 50-year-old truck. I'm happy with the way it looks. So we'll get her dried out. I noticed when I was taking the seats out, some of the hardware holding it down was a little crusty, a little difficult to come out. So it's time to just chase these with a tap and get them all cleaned up, get the hardware cleaned up, and that way I can reuse everything. It should go back together a lot nicer and hopefully clean out some of the garbage that collected over 50 years of being together. Before the tank can go in, this old crusty grommet needs to come out of here. I know it was leaking water. I've got a new one for it, and these are not really that difficult, but if you kind of don't or haven't done one of them before, it is a little weird. So my best advice to you is just use something that's not going to mar up the paint. Obviously, I don't have that to worry about, but just something that's not going to dig into it. So this is just a plastic paint scraper that's just enough to kind of wedge the thing out of there, and literally it just pops right out of there. But I'll show you how it goes back in just a minute, but let's get the tank in first. Now, God only knows how far around the world this thing traveled before it got to me, and it really doesn't matter how well it's packaged up. Some of these mounting surfaces get a little tweaked and a little bent. You just have to kind of massage them back to where they need to be, and that's all I needed to do here on a couple of these mounting holes. They were off just a hair. Again, it's just the way the tank's made. I don't think there's anything you could do to protect that. So just a little bit of massaging here got them back to where I could put the hardware in and get this thing bolted down permanently. So now that the tank is in, I have to address the filler neck, because if you look at this, it's not centered in the hole, and really for that grommet to work well, it has to be centered in there. Now again, it doesn't matter really, it's not the quality of the part, it's just that when you're working with a 50-year-old truck, things just don't fit perfectly, and this is a great example of it. Again, I don't know how long it's traveled overseas, but it needs a little bit of adjustment, and really this may freak a few people out, but the easiest way to do that is just to shove something in there and bend it to where you need to. And it's been 20 years since I've done this on one of these trucks, but it does freak you out a little bit to throw something in there and to tweak that neck around. But as long as you're not making big huge quick adjustments with it, you go slow with it, it's going to be just fine. It's made to move a little bit, and broom handle works really well because it doesn't really mar up where the gas cap goes in there, and you don't want to tweak any of that as well. So this one didn't require too much, just a little bit, but again, the whole idea is to get the filler neck centered in that hole as close as possible. That way the grommet has a better chance of sealing up a little bit better. So anyway, don't freak out over this one. It's just part of what every C10 or C15 owners are going to have to do. Now, installing the grommet, again, this is not difficult, but if you've got a nicely painted truck, you have to be a little careful. I use a nice silicone spray because it dries dry. There's not a lot of greasy, nasty stuff. WD-40, I guess, would probably be, the worst thing you could use because it tends to stick around for a while, capture dust. Maybe Windex or something like that. Just something that's a little give it a little bit of lubrication. So again, I use this paint scraper to just start to work the thing in there, and it may fight you a little bit. I mean, this isn't, these aren't, those grommets are sometimes a little, weird to get in there. They just don't, want to go in the slot that they need to. So you need to work it a little bit, and just a little bit of patience, and you'll get it to fit in there. But the whole idea here is just to make sure it's sealed up, make sure the tank is centered within that hole, and you're good to go. Now this one fought me a little bit more than I wanted to, so I needed something a little stiffer. Now these are tools that I use to change tires on dirt bikes, so I just had it laying around. But anything that's got a nice rounded edge on it, or something that's not going to dig into the grommet, or certainly not your paint, is the way to go. And then once it's in there and settled, the silicone will dry, and you're good to go. Now, unfortunately, the old gas cap on here was really not the nicest piece. It was, I don't know how well it's sealed. I think it was part of the problem, and I'll show you that here in a quick minute. But unfortunately, LMC truck only had these black gas caps, and I'm not too sure how much I like that right now, but yeah, for the most part we'll use it, and if I find another one down the road from another manufacturer, then I'll use that. But for now, we're all good and sealed up, and we're ready to throw some fuel in. Throw a little fuel in here, just check some leaks, make sure we didn't have any problems or anything. And yeah, I think I just threw about 4 or 5 gallons, whatever I had in the garage, and yeah, good to go. And fired right up. It's going to take a minute or two, I think, to draw some of that nasty old crappy fuel out of the fuel lines. I'm sure it's still quite nasty in there as well too. So as soon as that pushes through, then we'll be good to go. And yeah, everything looks good. Got clean fuel, and I just got to put this thing back together. Now, I promised I'd show you what was in this tank, and I guess I'm a little bit of a loss here. It's been a long time since I've emptied out a fuel tank or checked to see how the gross, nasty stuff was in it. And this stuff is literally the most disgusting. I've never seen so much rust and scale and garbage and crap. And I mean, this is only a little bit that I drained out of here. I think if I threw some more fuel or some more mineral spirits or something in there and really shook it out, there would be a lot more. I don't even have any idea how the pickup picked up fuel. It's so thick in there. I didn't get but a fraction of it out of the tank. So, yeah, it's no wonder I was getting so much debris and garbage and crap. And I guess it's a good lesson that, when you're building a fuel system, when you're building and trying to tune and get a carburetor dialed in or fuel injection, whatever the case may be, you've got to take into consideration the entire fuel system. And this was one of the worst tanks I've ever seen. Again, I'm at a bit of a loss here just because I don't know, again, that I've seen one so nasty. And, it's no wonder why the fuel was rust-colored, because that's what was coming out of the tank was rust. So, yeah, I knew I had to do this, and certainly I wasn't prepared for how much crap that came out of there. I was expecting a little bit, but, certainly not the, that really gross, scaly whatever. So anyway, lesson learned. It's been quite a few years. I guess the El Camino tank was the last one that I dropped out of there, and it was pretty disgusting, but it wasn't nearly this bad. So yeah, just one of those little things. If you keep getting garbage in your fuel and you got a factory fuel tank, well, this might be the reason why. So anyway, I hope that that either didn't terrify you, but yeah, it was certainly a learning experience for me. So anyway, that was the nastiness that was in this tank. I'm glad there's a new one in there now, and everything went back together fairly nice. When you clean up everything and just makes it feel a little bit better and a little nicer. There's a ton of rust in this floorboard. I mean, there's nothing I can do with it. I'm not going to, gut the thing and put cab corners and rockers and floorboards and everything in it. It needs a lot of work, but, it's clean now. And I guess really the most important thing is I solved that issue that I was having with the filters. And I knew there was a lot of garbage in the tank. I just didn't know that there was that much. So, kind of a weird situation, but, it's one of those things where I'm glad it's over with now. Eventually, I think I will probably, maybe over the winter, I'll pull the seat back out, maybe redo the foam and put a nice cover on it. But for now, it's just a driver. It's nothing. It wasn't ever meant to be anything perfect and show quality. I just wanted a nice driver. Eventually we'll get the air conditioning dialed back in and fixed and all those good things. But I got a few other little things to work on in between now and then. So anyway, again, that was a bit of a shock on the fuel tank. But hey, that's the reason why I've talked about that quite a bit over the years of getting the fuel system right when you're doing the carburation side of things. And, certainly fuel injection side of things is the exact same thing. You've got to get it all dialed in if, you want a good, dependable, long-lasting service out of it that's not clogging, carburetors or injectors up. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please give me a thumbs up on the video. I always do appreciate that. If you got any comments, I always love reading those and try to respond to every single one of them. And if you got any questions about the install too, please let me know. It's fairly straightforward, but there are a couple little things in there I guess maybe I didn't have time to show you. But that was a gas tank in the GMC. What an experience. We'll catch you guys on the next video. We'll see you.